See, now that's what we were looking for.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you all so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. Anthony Jones will be an Oregon Duck. Matayo Uiagalelei, underrated by those here at the Locked On Network. Breakout candidates, quarterback chatter, Bryce Boettcher. I'm jamming that all with a fun Oregon trivia on today's show, which is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So, a couple of weeks ago, if Anthony Jones had decided to commit, I have it on good authority, it would have been Alabama. The good news for the Ducks, that didn't happen, and there was a late change in the winds. Yesterday, I talked about the crystal ball coming from 24/7. I'd heard from a source as well that he was going to pick the Ducks. He does so on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, and it's the second five-star player in the trenches to commit on McAfee's show to Oregon this year. So, I'm not the biggest McAfee guy personally. I don't watch his show. I sometimes like him on game day. I sometimes don't. I do like that he adds more interest, hype, and intrigue to the sports recruiting efforts in the summer months. And so if it helps get that many more people aware that a big name committed to the Ducks, hey, I'm here for it. And he's having fun with it. So Anthony Tank Jones, as he is known, this is lining up to be, as my guy Zach Neal pointed out yesterday, an all-name class for Oregon. You've got Emmanuel Ihanacho, who I think will go by Nacho. You've got Jet Washington, Bryson Beaver in the fold, because why the heck not? It's just that much fun. And now you have Tank Jones. Tank Jones is a quintessential college football name. I want all of my offensive linemen and defensive linemen, and he's a defensive lineman, of course, I want them all to be named Tank Jones. This is a great pickup for the Ducks for a couple of reasons. Number one, they're back inside the top 10 nationally, where I expect them to finish. Big day on Saturday. Devon Benjamin, Deuce Gerald's four-star defensive back and defensive lineman, both committing. Oregon's got to beat out some heavy hitters, as you would expect. Gerald's is down to Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, Ole Miss, and LSU. Devon Benjamin's got interest from Washington, Texas, Michigan, and Miami, according to 24/7. I feel more confident about Benjamin. I think Oregon's in a good place for both. As long as they pick up at least one, it will be a good weekend. If they pick up two, I'm going to be in some kind of mood come Monday. But Jones has got Oregon back inside the top 10, number 8 nationally, according to 24/7 Sports. He's a 24/7 Sports 5-star composite edge player, number 4 at his position nationally, top 20 overall. He was among, or maybe the top uncommitted player in the class of 2026. This is such a great poll for Oregon to get recruiting momentum back. And remember, the last time the Ducks picked up a 2026 commit, it came in a batch of 3 back in early July. I'm just saying, you had Tommy Toffee, you had, wait for it, 5-star Emmanuel Ihanacho committed on the Pat McAfee show. Oh, and you had a 4-star defensive back. Just a few similarities if you think those things can ever be cyclical and whatnot. But Ihanacho was as fired up as anybody. Tweeted out a hilarious video, and it was kind of excited delirium, it looked like. And, he'd hinted at this a while back that, Oregon has another top 5 class coming. You'd certainly have to land both guys this weekend if that is going to become a possibility. But, Jones gives the Ducks instant momentum, a bolster in the recruiting rankings. And let's not forget, don't get all caught up in the numbers. Remember, dude is an elite prospect. And I'll get to his film in just a moment. But the second reason this is such a big win for the Ducks, 2 years in a row, Dan Lanning has walked into Alabama's backyard and has helped everybody realize Nick Saban's not here anymore. Kalen DeBoer and his staff, who of course went down there from Washington, have done a much better job this cycle, and I think will have really good results on the field. I don't know if Saban's there, Oregon lands both Tank Jones and Naeem Offord last cycle. 2 years in a row, you go into Alabama, pull the number one player. That's really impressive work by this Oregon staff, especially Jones. And, Offord was a flip from Ohio State. That was a big deal. He can be a Jim Thorpe Award winner for the best defensive back in college football. Jones is a great poll as well because he had been Alabama solid for so long. That's where industry experts thought he was going to go. That's where I'd heard he was going to go. And it seemed like one that, was really on lockdown, that Alabama just had. And yeah, this is a done deal. And Oregon is able to get the late switcheroo. So hopefully that remains through signing day because Jones is, make no mistake about it, an elite defensive line prospect and a unique one as well. 6'3.5", 240 pounds from St. Paul's Episcopal in Mobile, Alabama, top 20 player nationally and number 4 edge overall, as I mentioned. When I watch his highlight film, I see a combination of Jordan Burch and Matayo Uiagalelei. One similarity in particular that stands out between the three of these guys, they can line up in different spots along the defensive front. When you got into what I think they call the NASCAR package, kind of the all pass rushers and speed guys in obvious passing situations defensively last year, Jordan Burch would sometimes slide into the center. Sometimes Jordan Burch wasn't on the field for that particular package, but Matayo showed that he can stand up and slide inside. Jones can do that. He plays with a really aggressive tenacity. He finishes tackles like something is trying to get out of him, which I love. Anytime I see a guy pick up a player the way he does and pile drive him into the turf, I do think of Justin Flo. And Flo, I think, would have been a great player had he not gotten hurt. And so Jones really, really stands out with the versatility and the way that he can rush off the edge. That's what his position, I think, most naturally is. I wouldn't be stunned if he puts on a little more weight and becomes Jordan Burch adjacent, but I see a lot of Matayo Uiagalelei here. There are a couple of highlight plays, particularly where he strings out the run, an area where Matayo, I think, can still improve a little bit. I'll talk about him more later on the show. Jordan Burch, I thought, did a great job of that as Oregon's defensive end for the last couple of years. His ability to just set the edge and just kind of hold the tackle in place is really, really good. Jones has got great hands when he rushes the passer that allows him to use his speed to get by guards when he rushes from that stand-up position. And like I said, he's just violent. He's just a violent player in the best way, of course. So great pickup here for Oregon. They're up to 16 hard commits total in the class of 2026. He becomes the second highest rated defensive player in the class behind Jet Washington, according to 24/7's metrics. I think the composite ranking has Jones a little bit higher than Jet Washington. But, these are the sorts of guys, Jones and Jet and Nacho. These are Kendra Harrison as well, 5-star tight end. They can push for playing time right away. That'll depend on what the position group looks like, how the depth shakes out and such, but physically they've got those sorts of gifts, and this is just a phenomenal pickup for Oregon here to get back inside the top 10 nationally. So let me know your thoughts and how you're feeling about recruiting in the comments below. Hit me up on Twitter, all of that good stuff. I have a message for those here at this network that I love very much. First, this episode brought to you by Drip Drop. If you're trying to stay on top of your routine, whether that's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes or the golf course, hydration is where it all starts. And that is where Drip Drop comes in. Drip Drop is doctor-developed and scientifically proven for fast hydration. It uses the perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. So if I'm out on the course, I was playing earlier today, and I did fine. Thanks for asking. And it was close to 90 degrees with a little bit of humidity because there had been some rain. Hydration matters a lot. And if I don't stay hydrated, I don't think I close with a birdie on 18 like I did. That's just not something that's gonna happen as often. It's gonna be a lot tougher, and Drip Drop makes that a whole heck of a lot easier. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head to dripdrop.com, use the promo code LockedOnCollege. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LockedOnCollege for 20% off your order. Stock up now before the heat hits hard. Check out Drip Drop today. Second segment, sips don't hydrate me as much as Drip Drop does, but they get the job done as always. I love this network, Locked On, so very much for so many reasons. It's wonderful. I love it here. The hosts are great. My favorite part about hosting Locked On College Football is getting to talk to all the different hosts and learn what, different fan bases see and think and how they perceive the world. I have a message for all of my fellow Locked On hosts who contributed to our top 100 players list here in the college football space. I'm putting this graphic up on YouTube now for those of you that are watching the show. Matayo Uiagalelei at 33. Okay. I'm not saying he needs to be number one or inside the top 10. 33 for the guy who, when the Big Ten regular season came to a close, led the conference in sacks. The conference that is all about physicality and the trenches, and it was a true sophomore. He leads the Big Ten in he has 10.5 as a true sophomore, and you're saying he's 33? 33? No. I don't agree with that whatsoever. Now, Kenyon Sadiq is next on that list. Oregon has 4 in Locked On's top 100 college football players. Kenyon Sadiq 75, Bryce Boettcher 83, and Poncho at 94. Believe it or not, the guy who amongst these 4 players I think can move the most in these rankings in a positive direction in the eyes of the rest of the college football world here at the Locked On Network, I think it's Poncho at 94. And I'm happy to see him included so people recognize how good he is. This is a guy who could be 3 and done and drafted in the first couple of rounds as a center in the NFL. A guy who PFF said had a stellar true sophomore season starting at that center position, who's going to lock it down, of course, for the 2025 season as a true junior. That's not an easy thing to do. Jackson Powers Johnson didn't start at center until his 3rd year of college football, and of course went on to win the Remington Award. I think Poncho can push for that award in college football this year. I really do. If he puts up crazy good run blocking numbers, he's already an elite pass protector, and he's solid against in running situations. But in pass pro, he is so darn good. I just think he could move up a lot. Kenyon Sadiq is probably going to be the most popular answer for who could move up the most. 75th nationally. This is a guy who could feel like he's a top 20 player at the end of the season. But numbers are going to matter in this sort of list, in this, in the perception you create of yourself in the college football landscape. Poncho, man, I'm bullish. I'm bullish on Poncho, and I'm curious what you guys think. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll throw it up one more time on YouTube. Who has the biggest move in the eyes of our Locked On hosts by the end of this year? Matayo from 33 going up, Kenyon Sadiq from 75 going up, Bryce Boettcher from 83 going up, or Poncho from 94 going up. I'm curious to see what you guys think. I would also really like for Dan Lanning to screenshot that graphic that I was just showing, Matayo at 33, and I just wanted to present it to Matayo every day so that he can, not that he needs to be motivated to be great because he's already a really good player, but a little extra motivation never hurt. Let's get back into the mailbag here. YouTube comments, Twitter. You can become a Locked On Ducks insider as well. Get priority access and a bunch of other perks too. And John sends in a handful of players. I love this. That he thinks will be breakout candidates that are maybe flying under the radar. Like Kenyon Sadiq is due to have a breakout season. He's not flying under the radar. He was at Big Ten Media Days. He generated as much buzz as any individual player that was there all week in Las Vegas. So, send me yours. If you've got guys who you think, hey, I don't think people are talking about this guy, and I think he's going to have a big... Send them all to me. I'm curious. So, I'm going to attach a Spencer scale of agreement on the breakout potential, as in becomes a significant contributor that wasn't before, to each of these guys. There are 7 here. Six. There are 6 here. So, Jeremiah McLaughlin. Jeremiah McLaughlin, breakout. Well, I mean, I don't really know what Jerion Dickey is. I think McLaughlin can be really good. They're both highly touted recruits coming out of high school. But, man, the depth. I mean, DeCorian's going to be in there. You got Justice Lowe and Gary Bryant, who Dan mentioned recently. That never usually happens by accident. John also mentioned Dylan Gresham, who was the breakout star of the spring game and looked really, really awesome. Gosh, that wide receiver room has just got so much depth and talent. I'll say, honestly, based on what we saw from Gresham in that game, I'll go with a 4 on both of them. I'll go with a 4 on both of them. I think next season is when they can really, really pop. I think they'll obviously have a bigger role than they did in 2024, which was just redshirting. But I think, injuries could play a factor here. Like if the wide receiver room starts to get the injury bug, yeah, watch for McLaughlin and Gresham to have a bigger role. Aiden Breland, I like this one. I like this 7. 7.5. 7.5. I think Aiden Breland is, I mentioned this briefly yesterday on the show. Pretty sure it was yesterday. He is the guy that takes Bear Alexander's spot if the production isn't there, but is also, I think, the number 3 interior defensive tackle. So I think your first line is Bear Alexander and Amari Washington on the interior. I think Aiden Breland is the first guy off the bench. Like last year we saw Amari Washington make some impact plays and get a hefty number of snaps, and it was Harmon and Caldwell a lot, Washington a solid amount, and not really anybody else consistently. Breland got some run in the Rose Bowl. That could be a fairly balanced 3-man rotation. I'd be okay with it. I think all those guys are incredibly capable of being disruptive on the interior. So yeah, Breland, I'll go 7.5. Sione Laulea, I love the physical traits. I really do. His only impact moment at Oregon so far was in garbage time against Illinois when he got an interception. And he's a really intriguing prospect, 6'3", really long. That secondary room is loaded. I'm going to go with a 3 on Sione. It wouldn't shock me entirely. I'm just not quite to the level of expecting that to happen. Tioni Gray. Well, yeah, I'm gonna go 5 on Tioni Gray. His name pops up all the time in practice reports or interviews with players. Anytime people have a chance to talk about, who's standing out on the defensive line. Tioni Gray's name comes up a lot. If you go look at, what he did in the spring game, either of the last 2 years, he's looked really good. We haven't seen that translate to a lot of snaps on the field yet, but yeah, I'm gonna say, that if Oregon goes back to, and I think they will because they have the depth and guys ready to make these contributions. If they go back to 4 interior defensive linemen like they had a couple of years ago, when it was Dorless and Taki and Casey Rogers and Popo Amavai, last year was more 3-man. If they go back to a 4-man, I think it's just as likely as not that Tioni Gray is one of those 4 guys. So it could be him, could be Terrence Green. We'll see. But yeah, so I'll give a 5 to Tioni Gray. And then Dink Riggs. I like Dink Riggs. I do. I really do. The running back depth is just so solid. They clearly like Jaden Lamar's the number 3 back because he's kind of scrappy and does a little bit of everything. And, if Jay Harris, who I'm intrigued by, is not someone that's seeing a lot of time, I don't know if Riggs does. I know that the top 2 at the running back spot is Mekhi Hughes 1, Noah Whittington 2. I know that that's the case. So that's a tough situation to break into there. So unfortunately with Riggs, I'm going to go with a 2. But I think he has the talent to be a high-end number 2 or really solid number 1. We've heard him be referred to as Little Bucky before. I like Dink Riggs. I do. I think he is shifty and elusive. I think he's bigger, better traded Travis Dye, who was a darn good running back for the Ducks. So, yeah, I love this idea. You send me names, and I give you an SSA take on whether I think they break out this year. But yeah, highest one of that group, Aiden Breland, 7.5. Love what Breland brings to the table. So, an interesting quarterback question, a question about Bryce Boettcher, and trivia time. I love this show, and I hope you do too. First, this episode brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there. You're waiting to go to your favorite concert. You get in line. You're waiting for the tickets to go on sale, logging in, and then you lose your spot and you don't get to go to the show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, and that is where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, so you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. So I've used Game Time a couple of times myself, and the process has been great. I knew what to expect, no surprise fees, knew what my seat was going to look like. It was all what I'm looking for when I go to buy tickets for an event. And whether it's sports, comedy, concerts, they've got it all. Take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, let's start with a question about Bryce Boettcher because that's in the here and now. This is for Spencer's scale of agreement. Bryce Boettcher will be drafted in the first 4 rounds of the NFL draft next year and put the MLB on pause. First 4. Bossa was taken in the 6th. He would have to... I think Bossa is a bit more physically gifted when at full strength than Bryce. You can't overlook the fact that Bryce almost eclipsed 100 tackles last year. The guy is just solid. I don't know if he's viewed as being fast enough to be drafted that high at the linebacker position. Do I think he's good enough to get selected? Yes. I think he definitely could. I think he has more upward potential talent-wise in Major League Baseball. However, that doesn't mean he couldn't, go into the NFL for a couple of years, try to keep his baseball game sharp with some BP, and obviously it's not the same, but yeah, you can only put a career in pro sports on hold for so long. You know what I mean? Like, could he spend an entire rookie contract with the team and then go back to playing baseball? That's asking a lot. I think he could give it a shot, not make it past some practice squads, realize I'd rather play baseball, and then do it after maybe a year. I don't think he could wait several years for that. So I would love to see him do it. Obviously, Eugene Kidd, going to be arguably the captain of this Oregon defense here in 2025. I will go first 4 rounds. I'll go 3.5. I'll go 3. The NFL is more appealing than Major League Baseball for several reasons. You don't have to go through the minor league system. There's more money. But yeah, I think he winds up eventually playing baseball. I would love for him to play football, though. I love watching Pro Ducks on Sundays. I really do. Fly Rothstein sends this in. Let's take 2024's team and replace Dylan Gabriel with one of these quarterbacks. Who do you feel would have given us the best chance to win the Natty? Dennis Dixon, Marcus Mariota, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix. Well, there's no bad option in there, just to be clear. Literally not a single one. Last year, I'm never going to pick against Marcus. That's the GOAT. Like, Bo Nix had a chance to be in that conversation if things had ended differently in that season. He was really good the whole time, but yeah, I'm gonna go with Marcus there always. But I like the Dennis Dixon inclusion. I really do. So let's wrap up with what is quickly becoming my favorite part of every show, and you're all loving it too. And you keep the questions coming in. I especially love the trivia question that I get to follow up on today. So I was correct. There was a resending of this trivia question yesterday, but I'd already recorded the show, and I'd already scheduled it to go out. But there's more than one right answer to this particular question, which was which Oregon player has the most Super Bowl rings. There's actually a tie for the number of players with 4 Super Bowl rings. Here's the crazy part. LeGarrette Blount was my answer. He is one of them. Patrick Chung, another. He was on the Pats for a long time. Derek LaVille was in there, 49ers and Broncos. Kenyon Barner won the Eagles with Nick Foles. He was on that roster. And then a couple with the Patriots and then the Buccaneers with Tom Brady. Here's one that, on a personal level, I probably should have known. I didn't know it was 4, but one of my insiders sent me the, follow-up answer to this trivia clue and sent me Michael Walter. Fun fact, I have known Mike Walter, which is what he goes by, from the moment I was born. He and my dad are best friends. He is the person with whom I have been going to Oregon games the longest in my life. I have never been to an Oregon game at Autzen Stadium when Mike wasn't there. And every now and then he listens to the show. So hopefully this is an episode he tunes into because his name just popped up. And I didn't know that. I knew he'd won Super Bowls with the 49ers. He was on some teams with Joe Montana and Steve Young. I didn't know it was 4. I frankly thought it was 2 or 3. I probably should have known he was one of the guys with 4. But I love that just randomly came across my prep for today's show. That, oh, yeah, one of those answers, Michael Walter. Like, oh, I have an idea of who that is. We played golf together just a month ago. So today's trivia is not specific to Oregon necessarily, but was one I wanted to include anyway. This is not going to become a theme. I do want to get this back to Oregon-centric trivia. But what 4 players won the Heisman and were also named MVP of their Super Bowl winning team in the NFL? Now, John, a piece of advice if you send me one of these questions again in the future, don't DM me the answers right afterwards. So I'll let you guys hang that one out there. Keep the questions coming. Keep the Spencer Scale of Agreement takes coming. The content will continue to roll along, of course, because hopefully by the time you're listening to or watch the show, Oregon's picked up Deuce Gerald's and or Devon Benjamin. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. Until then, hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.